Among monsters and beasts, I was never meant to blend in. I was born to rule. I am DKing Saad. And welcome back to the DKing Combat Podcast. Tonight's episode is not just another motivational speech. This one is deeper. Because whether men admit it openly or not, almost every man at some point in his life quietly realizes a painful truth. Men are not born respected. And that moment you truly understand that, your entire perspective on life changes. You start understanding why men feel pressure all the time, why men become obsessed with proving themselves, why some men destroy themselves chasing success, why some men become disciplined warriors, while others slowly disappear into comfort and weakness. Because deep down, every man wants respect, real respect. Not fake likes, not fake compliments, not fake online validation. Real respect. The kind where your words carry weight. The kind where people trust your presence. The kind where people feel safe around you. The kind where another man looks at you and silently understands. This man has suffered. This man has discipline. This man has survived something. But the harsh reality is nobody automatically gives a man that respect. A man must build himself into someone worthy of it. And that journey is painful, lonely, heavy, misunderstood, but necessary. Because the world judges man differently. People can debate this emotionally all they want, but reality does not care about feelings. Reality observes results. Can this man handle pressure? Can he control himself? Can he protect people? Can he stay calm during chaos? Can he lead when things become difficult? Can he stay disciplined when life becomes painful? Because when life gets hard, words stop mattering. Character begins speaking. Many men today are struggling because nobody prepared them for that truth mentally. They were told, just be yourself, just exist, just follow your feeling, but nobody explained to them that the world rewards value. The world respects competence. The world respects strength under control. The world respects discipline. And that realization hurts many men because deep down they know they are capable of more. A lot of men today are not physically tired, they are spiritually exhausted. No mission, no structure, no brotherhood, no purpose, no direction, just distraction after distraction after distraction. That's how you get physically, spiritually exhausted. Wake up, check the phone, scroll, consume, escape, repeat, and slowly, without realizing it, a man loses his edge. Not overnight, quietly. That's the dangerous thing about comfort. Comfort never looks dangerous in the beginning. Comfort feels warm. Comfort feels safe. Comfort whispers, you can start tomorrow. You deserve rest. You still have time. Then suddenly, years disappear. Potential disappears. Discipline disappears. And one day a man wakes up feeling disconnected from himself. That feeling is painful because many men secretly know that they are betraying their own potential. That's why some men feel angry all the time. Not because the world hurt them, because deep down they know they are becoming weak. And weakness destroys a man psychologically. Not just physical weakness, mental weakness, emotional weakness, spiritual weakness, the inability to control yourself, the inability to stay disciplined, the inability to handle pressure that destroys self respect. And once a man loses respect for himself, his confidence becomes fake. His words lose weight. His energy changes. People can feel it. That's the scary part. People feel weakness before you even speak. The way you walk, the way you stand, the way you react under pressure, the way you handle confrontation, the way you speak. Everything communicates something, and deep down, most men already know this. That's why men obsess over strength, money, status, success, recognition. Because a man wants to feel valuable, he wants to feel capable, he wants to feel respected. But many men today want respect without becoming respectable. And that is where suffering begins. Because life eventually exposes everybody. You can fake confidence online. You can fake motivation online. You can fake success online. Pressure exposes emotional weaknesses. Pressure exposes fake discipline. Pressure reveals the truth. Pressure exposes insecurity. That's why combat sports change men so deeply because combat forces honesty. You cannot lie during pressure. You cannot fake composure when another human being is testing you physically and mentally. The moment real pressure enters the room, your real self appears. Not the social media version, not the fake motivational version, the real you. Your breathing changes, your emotions changes, your confidence changes, and suddenly you meet yourself honestly. That's why hardship builds stronger men than comfort ever will. Pain removes illusion. Pressure removes illusion. Responsibility removes illusion. And honestly, many men today are terrified of pressure. That's why they constantly distract themselves. Because silence forces honesty. A man sitting long enough eventually hears the truth inside himself. And sometimes that truth is painful. Sometimes that truth says, you are wasting your life. And sometimes the truth says, you are becoming soft. Sometimes the truth says, you are hiding from your responsibility. And many men run from that voice. They drown it with entertainment, scrolling, addictions, validation, attention, temporary pleasure. But no distraction removes the truth permanently. Because deep down, every man knows what kind of man he could become. And maybe that is the most painful thing of all. The man you could have been, quietly watching the man you are becoming. That destroys many men internally. Because every broken promise slowly damages the relationship a man has with himself. You say, I will wake up early, and then you don't. I'll become disciplined, and then you quit. I'll build my future, and then you delay it. And eventually, a man stops trusting himself. That is one of the darkest places a man can mentally reach. Because once a man loses trust in himself, everything changes. His confidence becomes performance. His motivation becomes temporary. His identity becomes unstable. That's why discipline matters so much. Discipline is not just productivity, discipline rebuilds self respect. Every hard workout, every uncomfortable decision, every promise kept to yourself, every disciplined action slowly rebuilds the warrior inside you. And this is why difficult paths transform men differently. The gym changes men. Combat training changes men. Responsibility changes men. Business changes men. Leadership changes men. Because hard things force growth. Hard things force maturity. Hard things force self control. Weak men avoid responsibility. Strong men become capable enough to carry it. And that's another harsh truth nobody talks about, honestly. The world respects men who can carry weight. Let me repeat it. The world respects men who can carry weight. Not just physical weight, life weight, pressure, responsibility, leadership, family, pain, chaos. A man who remains calm during difficult moments becomes rare. A man who stays disciplined while suffering becomes rare. A man who controls emotions under pressure becomes rare. And rarity creates value. That's why real masculine energy has never been about being loud. Real masculine passion feels calm. Listen to this closely. Again, real masculine energy has never been about being loud. Real masculine presence feels calm, grounded, controlled, sharp, dangerous if necessary, but disciplined enough not to abuse. Okay, masculinity doesn't mean like you are super aggressive and you are just trying to kill everything, destroying everything. That's not masculinity. Masculinity is controlled, sharp, grounded, dangerous only if necessary, and disciplined enough not to abuse. Very important part. And people feel that energy naturally. That kind of presence cannot be faked. The strongest man in the room is usually not the loudest. It's usually the calmest. The man who does not desperately need validation. He's not desperate for you to validate him or do anything for him. The man who does not constantly seek attention. The man who has suffered enough to become emotionally controlled. Because suffering either destroys a man or sharpens him. And honestly, many men today feel invisible. Not because they are worthless, because they have not built themselves yet. And that truth hurts. But it is also empowering because if respects can be earned, then transformation is possible. That means a man is not trapped forever. He can rebuild himself physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. But first, he must stop lying to himself. Because if you keep lying to yourself, there is nothing anybody can do for you. Once you stop lying to yourself, that is where real masculine growth begins. Honesty, brutal honesty. Looking at your life and admitting, I can become more. Not from self hatred, but from self awareness. Because there is a difference between destroying yourself mentally and challenging yourself to evolve. A disciplined man understands this. He understands that growth requires discomfort, and this modern world hates discomfort. Everything today is designed to make people soft. Instant dopamine, instant entertainment, instant pleasure, no patience, no discipline, and no resilience. But strong men are not built instantly. Strong men are built slowly through repeated struggle, repeated discipline, repeated failure, repeated recovery, and repeated growth. That's why growth feels lonely sometimes. The moment a man becomes serious about improving his life, his environment starts changing. His mindsets change, his standards change, and suddenly he no longer enjoys meaningless conversation. He does not like to waste time. He no longer enjoys lazy environments. He no longer feels comfortable around people with no purpose. And many ambitious men feel guilty for this. But growth naturally changes energy. Disciplined men remind others of their lack of discipline. Focused men remind others of distraction. Strong men remind others of weakness. That's why becoming better sometimes feels isolating. Not because you hate people, because your priorities evolve. And this journey can become emotionally exhausting. It's not an easy thing, but it's necessary. Because while everybody else relaxes, you keep building. While everybody else escapes pressure, you face it voluntarily. While everybody else waits for motivation, you rely on discipline. And eventually, something changes inside a man. He stops chasing approval. This is one of the most powerful shifts a man can experience. When he no longer desperately needs to be seen, no longer desperately needs validation, no longer desperately needs everybody to understand him, because he finally understands something important. Silent capability speaks louder than forced attention. A disciplined man no longer needs to announce his value constantly. His habits speak for him. His presence speaks for him. His energy speaks for him. And this is where many men finally mature emotionally. When they realize, I do not need to prove myself to everybody anymore. This is real confidence, not arrogance, not fake alpha behavior, not loud insecurity disguised as masculinity. Real confidence is calm. Real confidence is controlled. Real confidence is earned internally. And maybe that is the deepest message of tonight's episode. Men are not born respected, but men can become respectable through discipline, through struggle, through self control, through honesty, through responsibility, through repeatedly choosing growth over comfort. Not overnight, not instantly, it's not 2 minute noodles, slowly, painfully, piece by piece, decision by decision, scar by scar. And maybe that is what makes masculine growth beautiful. A man earns himself. He builds himself through suffering, through discipline, through pressure, until one day the same world that once ignored him begins to feel his presence. Not because he begged for attention, but because he became undeniable. Do you understand this part? I remember that saying, become so good that they cannot ignore you. That's exactly what happens when you become that man who respects himself, that disciplined man who never gives up. Mentally, physically, spiritually, controlled and strong. That's what real masculinity is. Among monsters and beasts, I was never meant to blend in. I was born to rule. I am the king. And this is the DKing Combat Podcast. See you next time.